Welcome to Super Samurai Market. My name is Paul Kramers and I'm here with Mr. Robert Hughes and Mr. Matsumoto Yoshiyuki. Today we are back to introduce Token Matsumoto, an exciting sword shop in Nishi Kasai. We will start with a brief interview with the president of the corporation and later present some items available here in the shop. So, to jump right into it, Matsumoto-san, can you tell us how you got involved in sword business?
I took over my father's business 13 years ago. Before, I worked for financial companies.
So when you first got involved in sword business, you were working with your father in his original shop?
Yes.
And that was in Noda.
Yes.
Okay, and now you've just opened recently this very beautiful shop in Nishi Kasai.
Yeah.
So could you explain a little bit about that? Why you decided to open a shop in Nishi Kasai and why this location?
Before, my father's shop was in Noda, Chiba Prefecture. It's a bit far from Tokyo. It takes around 2 hours by train. So, to invite more customers from corporates, so I think we should open a shop near Tokyo Station.
Okay, so from Tokyo Station to this location, how long does it take to reach your shop?
It takes less than 30 minutes.
Well, that's very convenient.
Matsumoto-san, can you tell us a little bit about your personal sword business philosophy?
Okay. Since I get involved with this business, I always think we Japanese sword trader, should approach more to a lot of people, not only domestic, but international potential customers.
So your background, prior to becoming a sword trader, you were involved in international business, weren't you?
Yes. When I worked for the financial companies, I worked in Indonesia for 5 years.
Were you using English every day?
A bit.
Okay. So in addition to having that experience, now you're also involved in the Zen Tosho Kumiai, which in English translates as the All Japan Sword Traders Association. So how long have you been involved with this association, and what is your involvement? What are you doing?
When I took over this business, I get involved in the Dento Shokumiai, so 13 years. 8 years ago, I became a board member, and then I elected 5 times consecutively. So as one of the board members, I will try to show my experiences.
Okay, so you're making good use of international business experience to the benefit of the Zen Tosho Kumiai.
I'm trying.
That's great. So I know you've been involved in the promotion of the Daijo, the world premier samurai art event, and you actually were involved in translating the content of the catalog into English.
Yes.
For international visitors. So How many board members are there on the Zen Tosho Kumiai?
The number is 17.
And what is the total number of members of sword dealers?
10 times 170.
Okay, so basically there's one board member for every 10 regular members. Nice ratio. Okay. Well, thank you for giving us some background information about your history and your business ideas and your background with the Zen Tosho Kumiai. So we appreciate the fact that you're giving us an opportunity to visit your shop and showcase this very nice environment for people to come and show their interest in fine samurai art. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I really hope with your cooperation support, we can spread the overseas business.
Yes, it's a good opportunity for people to come and learn about Japanese culture and fine samurai art in a beautiful environment.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having us here today, Matsumoto-san.
Thank you.
The first blade that we're presenting today from Token Matsumoto should be of interest to Bizen collectors and especially late Koto Bizen collectors and early Shinto period Bizen pieces. So this piece, the primary interesting point is it's a Gasaku signature. And Gasaku means a collaboration. So the collaboration on this sword was between Yokoyama Kozuke Daijo Fujiwara Sukesada and his father, Shichibe no Jo. And that information is on the Nakago that you can see visually. On the reverse side, which you'll see later, there's an inscription indicating Bi-no-Zen Shu Osafune, which gives the location. The Nakago itself is ubu in nice condition, and you can see that it's kate sagari file markings and a kurijiri end piece, the end cut. So this is typical Bizen style. So the blade itself, as we look at it, you'll notice from the lower part of the blade, you're going to see that the blade is Shinogi Zakuri. It's Yori Mune. And the hamon, which is also particularly interesting with this piece, what you're seeing now is the Gunome Midare, which then changes into Suguha for the remainder of the blade. So not only was this sword created by two master swordsmiths, but it also illustrates two very different hamon in the same sword. So from a collector's point of view, there's a certain uniqueness with this particular wakizashi. Now the length of the blade is 39.2 centimeters, which in inches is 15.4 inches. The curvature is 0.7 centimeters or 0.3 of an inch. The motohaba is 3.1 centimeters or 1.2 inches. So it's got some width to it, and the sakihaba is 2.1 centimeters or 0.8 inches. The blade was recognized as a Tokubetsu Hozon piece. Now, if we look closely into the hara, you're going to see some interesting features. So here you'll see koitame nagare. So the nagare means elongated or stretched out koitame. But you can also see chike in the hada as well. So the features of the sword are quite attractive overall, and it's an interesting piece to hold in hand and to study.
Should we do the other side?
So now we're going to look at the reverse side. And you can see, you can barely make out the kisaki in the boshi, but
I can zoom in the Bushu.
okay. So this is starts out with kind of a straight pattern and then a sharp turn. Again, as we view from the kisaki backwards, you're going to see on the opposite side, you see the suguha portion of the blade. And then it reaches a point where it converts to the gunome midare. And then you'll see on the ura of the nakago, the Bi-no-Zen shu Osafune. So this Wakizashi was forged by Yokoyama Kozuke Daijo Fujiwara Sukesada with his father Shichibe no Jo Sukesada. Yokoyama Kozuke Daijo Sukesada was recognized as, or has been recognized as, one of the top smiths of the Sukesada lineage in the Shinto era and the Shin-Shinto era. So he received the title of Kozuke Daijo in 1664. Then when his father, Shichibe no Jo Sukesada, passed away in 1674, this piece must have been produced in that interim. So somewhere between 1664 and 1674, this would have been forged when both of them were still active. The overall impression is that this is a very healthy wakizashi in very good condition. And as such, with the collaboration, the gasaku mei, and the interesting hamon of combined gunome midare and suguha, this was recognized as tokubetsu hozon by the NBTHK. Certainly an interesting piece. And also interesting is the Token Matsumoto price of 400,000 Japanese yen. So at that price, this is exceptional good value. Next, we're going to examine a nice katana with the signature Bushu Shitahara Yasushige. So if you're familiar with Bushu Shitahara blades, you'll know that the area of production was on the outskirts of Tokyo. So this Yasushige is likely to have been Yogoro Yasushige, who was active during the late Muromachi period, so in the Tensho era, so approximately around 1570. And Yasushige smiths worked for the Hojo family during the Sengoku period. But later, Yasushige moved to Shitahara, which was a place near Hachioji Castle. And from that point onward, he started engraving Shitahara in his signatures. So this is a representative piece from that period. The Nakago is slightly suriage, but you can see kiri file markings and Tanagobara shape. Also, previously in focus, you were able to see the habaki. And the habaki is a gold foil shonai style habaki, which complements the blade nicely. Now, as we're examining the sword itself, you can see the temper line is a Sugu Gonome pattern. And you'll notice the jihada. You can see itame and mokume. You'll also notice that there's thick jinie, and in places you can see chike. So overall, this temper line makes an attractive viewing piece. The blade itself is 68.2 centimeters long, which in inches is 26.9 inches. The sori, or curvature, is 1.8 centimeters, or 0.7 of an inch. The motohaba is 3.1 centimeters, which creates a substantial depth to the blade. That's 1.2 inches. The sakihaba is 2.3 centimeters, or 0.9 of an inch. This blade received a Hozon certification from MBTHK. You can notice in the boshi, there's a hakikake style. Yeah, the lighting makes it a little bit awkward to see with the angle there. Get a little bit of the perspective right there. Should we do the overall? Yeah, let's go do the reverse. From this presentation, it should be quite clear that the condition of this sword is very good. And the basic shape is a very robust blade. One fact about Yasushige is his swords were considered to cut very well. So there's probably a reference to wazamono. So in a sense, this is a good example of a Shitahara katana. But as it's a long blade at 68.2 centimeters with a full signature of Bushu Shitahara Yasushige from the late Koto period, Muromachi, basically, Tensho era, it itself is a rare piece.
It's quite interesting formations here.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of variation in the hara. So you got your itame and then in locations, mokume. What's also rare about this sword is the price. This sword is being offered at Token Matsumoto for 500,000 yen. Now, if you convert that right now with the current dollar exchange rate, that places this sword at about $3,500, which is exceptional value. So, international purchasers with access to US dollars can actually acquire quite a nice Koto era sword with signature, gold foil habaki, Hozon paper for around $3,500. That's pretty good value.
Yeah.
The next item we're going to look at takes us back to the Nambokucho period. The blade is Osuriage Mumei with an attribution to Ko-uda. Ko-uda tradition being primarily represented by Echu province. If we look at the Nakago, see nice dark chocolate patina indicative of that age. And also at this stage, you can see the silver foil habaki, which is also shonai style. You can see in the Nakago that there are 4 mekugiana. So this blade, over its history, has been remounted, with a shortening of the Nakago 4 times. And it looks like one of the holes is actually combined with a separate hole, so at least maybe 5 different occasions, indicative of that long history. The blade itself right now is 64.9 centimeters long. Obviously, with the amount of shortening and the number of mekugiana, obviously the length is diminishing over time. But that's still 25.6 inches with a sori of 1.2 centimeters or 0.5 inches. The motohaba is 2.8 centimeters or 1.1 inch, and the sakihaba is 1.9 centimeters or 0.7 inches. So this sword earned Tokubetsu Hozon certification from the NBTHK. Now, as we progress along, you're going to see the hataraki and primary features of this sword. So, in the jihada, you'll find koitame nagare, and which resembles in certain places almost masame. The hamon itself is a sugu or straight komidare with nie, which you can see readily. Then there are spots where you can see ashi. You can see yo, hotsure, and kuichigai. So the Ko-uda certification signifies that this blade was part of the Uda production, which ran from Kamakura period through to Nambokucho, and that's what the ko indicating old Uda. So that gives us, the primary range of 1317 through to 1394. But the work in this particular piece is representative of the latter part of the Ko-uda designation. So it would place it in the Nambokucho period. So, probably somewhere around 1360 or 70. So among the Ko-uda tradition, there were several famous swordsmiths. Konudo Kunimitsu was actually the founder, and he moved from Uda in Yamato province to Echi province in the late Kamakura period. And from him, there were several famous student smiths, Kunifusa, Kunimune, and Kunimitsu, to name a few. And it was their students who flourished during the Muromachi period, so from 1394 to 1595. And those smiths are collectively known as Uda school smiths. This sword, with its designation of Ko-uda, gives representation to some of the early features which you'd expect, which would be Yamato school influence. So these would be aspects like the Nie, Tsunagashi, and the Hotsure. And this really helps to liven up the blade. So it's rich in hataraki. So for collectors of Nambokucho period blades, this one certainly offers quite a bit of excitement for viewing pleasure. So even though we're looking at a sword that is approximately 650 years old, it's still in very healthy condition. Studying this particular piece would bring quite a bit of satisfaction to connoisseurs of such early work.
Here's the Nagare
Yes,
formation zone.
the elongated patterns. This sword also is accompanied with a nice kosher, which we'll get to shortly. The Ko-uda blade comes with this nice tope goshirai from the Bakumatsu period. Now we're looking at the Tsuba. And the Tsuba itself is signed, and the signature reads Efuju Masatoshi. And the base work is iron, and you can see plum blossoms inlaid in silver. Now, those same inlaid plum blossom features are also appearing on the Fujikashira. So it appears that this is original and in suite. So let's examine it in a little more detail. The same beneath the ito has been polished nicely so that the surface is flush. Okay, this was a time-consuming feature, and a lot of early ska, the same is left in the original formation, so that the top surface is not flush or flat. So somebody took the time to put in the extra work to create this product. You can see the Menuki are Hijo, Maru Mitsumori, Kiko Hanabishi. So this is family crest. And the central part appears to be gold overlay on a copper foundation. Fairly nice fittings. The fuchi itself has a gold fukunin edging around it. And the saya also, the fittings also have the same gold application on the edges. Then you'll start to notice the lacquer work. So the lacquering is done in black finish in the Hakeme Nuri style. You can see that the application is it's on the diagonal, and you can see the brush markings. But also, if you look closely, you can see in the lacquer, you can see the aogai particles, the greenish blue little flashes that create a kind of metallic sparkling effect. And I'm not sure how well this is coming out. Oh, there's a section where it's visible. But in hand, under the right lighting, the saya finish is actually quite spectacular. Then reaching the kojiri, and it's also in suite with the other fittings, the fujikashira. And you can see that it's done in iron. It's got the gold application for edging, the fukunin, and you can see the silver inlaid plum blossoms. This type of koshirai production was popular in the Bakumatsu period. So, of course, it's much later than the period in which the blade was produced, because the blade dates back to the Nambocho period. The sword itself was awarded Tokubetsu Hozon certificate, and it's quite likely that if this koshirai were submitted to Shinsa, it could also get Tokubetsu Hozon level certification, because all of the pieces are in suite and appear to be nice original koshirai from the Bakumatsu period. This type of lacquer work is pretty much impossible to get this level of lacquer work done today. There are some Japanese shokunin-san who can do some restoration work, but to actually produce a saya with this lacquer finish would be prohibitively expensive today. This koshira is a very fine production. And that brings us to the price. A Nambocho period Ko-uda blade at 64.9 centimeters with a Bakumatsu period Tope Goshirai with a signed iron Tsuba to F.A.Ju Masatoshi. This is available for 700,000 yen. Next, let's examine this katana, signed Echigo no Kami Kanesada, attributed to the second generation. The blade construction is shinogi zakuri with the yori mune. As we're looking at the nakago, you can see a very nicely cut signature. And the nakago itself is ubu with tsujikai and some keisho file patterns and a iriyama bottom piece. You can also notice that the habaki is a gold foil or kin kisei niju habaki. With this particular one, the gold foil is actually fairly thick, which makes it quite substantial and would have been a fairly expensive creation. Anyway, the habaki itself is quite beautiful. Talking about Echigo no Kami Kanesada from Setsu province, he was working in the early Edo period and was a disciple of the first generation Echigo no Kami Kanesada. So the second generation became one of the most famous smiths of the Osaka Shinto tradition, and holds the ranking of Jojo Saku. As we examine the sword, you're going to see in the tempering that there's a certain resemblance to the work of Sukehiro, especially the Toramba style of Sukehiro. You can see that the hamon, the ogunome midare, is very lively and very attractive. You can see the thick nie found throughout. You'll also see on close examination that there is tsunagashi and some of the rounded tamayaki that actually defines the work of Sukehiro, but it's found here in this second generation Kanesada.
Quite a lot of Junin here, right?
Yes. So in the Jihada, you'll see koitame with jimie, and you should be able to spot abundant chike. This katana is 61.7 centimeters, which comes in at 24.3 inches. The curvature, or sori, is 0.8 centimeters, or 0.3 of an inch. The moto haba is 3.2 centimeters, which gives it considerable depth. That's 1.2 inches. The saki haba is 2.1 centimeters, or 0.8 of an inch. Although this blade is a little short, it's definitely ubu and was probably special ordered at this length. So there must have been some reason for the swordsmith to have been commissioned to make this sword at that length.
Shall we show the other?
Sure, let's examine the opposite side. So in Japan, when you're examining a splendid sword like this, you often hear expressions like "deki ga ii." Deki ga ii means that the luster of the blade and the features of the blade are quite brilliant, and it's quite splendid to behold and look at. It's an exquisite work of production in iron. This sword, of course, is recognized at the Tokubetsu Hoson level for these splendid features that you can see in this presentation. If you're interested in acquiring a significant sword from the early Edo period, a fine Shinto blade, this is a very nice example. What's also very nice is the price. So this Tokubetsu Hoson Shinto katana, made by Jojo Saku Smith, is available here at Token Matsumoto for 1 million yen. Take advantage of that strong dollar and the weak yen and acquire some important swords for your collection. This could be one of them. Let's examine this beautiful katana. Okay, you'll notice that we're focused in on the signature right now. The signature reads Kawachi no Kami, Fujiwara Masahiro. So for serious sword connoisseurs, already you'll have identified this as a Bizen blade. From the Kambun era, so Kambun Shinto. The Nakago is ubu with Tsuchikai file markings and in an Iriyama shape. There's a single Mekugiana. So this Nakago is ubu. In addition to observing the Nakago, you can also see the Habaki. And the Habaki is interesting construction because it's a Niju Habaki consisting of two parts. And the bottom part is silver. And the upper part is done in gold foil with Yujo file markings. So the Habaki itself is quite striking. Well, let's take a look at the blade. This sword is 72.1 centimeters long, which comes in at 28.4 inches. The curvature is 1.8 centimeters or 0.7 inches. Motohaba, 3.3 centimeters, gives it considerable depth, which is 1.3 inches. The sakihaba is 2.4 centimeters or 0.9 of an inch. Overall, the dimensions reflect the Kambun Shinto. as we examine the blade, you'll be able to see some interesting features, beginning with the hammer, which is gunome midare, primarily, with spacing where there's some sugu, but the richness of the gunome midare display, tobiyaki, rich in konie, lots of ashi. These are features that are also found in Hizen blades of the period. Most people are familiar with the Tadayoshi lineage, and actually the Masahiro lineage was a sub-branch of the Tadayoshi lineage, as were the Yukihiro and the Tadakuni lineages. So these are referred to as Waki Hizen. However, the Masahiro family was very well compensated for their work. And the Masahiro family members were actually said to have been treated better than the Tadayoshi lineage members. So this swordsmith, Kawachi no Kami Masahiro, second generation, was the son of the first generation. And when he began, his original sword signature was Masanaga. His actual name was Hashimoto Yashichiro. But born as the first son of the first generation of Masahiro, he received the title of Musashi Daijo in 1660. The following year, in 1661, he received the title of Musashi no Kami. Then, when the first generation passed away in 1665, Masanaga changed his title to Kawachi no Kami and changed his name to Masahiro. He continued his work and eventually passed away in 1699 at the age of 73. The Masahiro lineage overall continued for 10 generations. This lasted up until the Meiji period. So this particular work was Masahiro second generation. And his reputation was as strong as the first generation. In other words, these two Masahiro smiths were among the best of the Waki Hizen swordsmiths. And this katana appears to be one of second generation Masahiro's better works. At the current time, this sword is recognized at the Tokubetsu Hozon level by the MBTHK. Now, examining these features, we're going in reverse now on the opposite side. We're going to see that the condition of the sword is very healthy. Of course, it's speculation, but looking at these features and at this particular blade's condition, there is some possibility that this sword may reach a Juyo designation at some point in the future. Nonetheless, at Tokubetsu Hozon level and the current price, it's still an amazing acquirable piece. And if it ever reaches a Juyo potential, then the owner will be definitely pleased with the purchase. Because this particular sword right now is priced at 2 million Japanese yen, which is a bargain for a serious samurai art piece in this condition. It's a pleasure to be looking at and studying this particular sword, a masterpiece.
Okay, let's now look at some Kodogu items. First up, we have an iron Kachushi Tsuba with design of Sakura. We have 6 cherry blossoms here arranged around the seppa. It has been attributed to Kachushi by the MBTHK, which means that it was made by an armorer, maybe somewhere at the beginning of the Edo period. It has a Tokubetsu Kichu paper, which was a rank used by the MBTHK, comparable to today's Tokubetsu Hozon. An interesting characteristic here is that this piece has a quite enlarged Kozuka hitsu. It might thus have been made to host an O-Kozuka, a somewhat larger than standard size Kozuka. The iron plate is thin and old rust patina is apparent, as we would expect from these type of tsuba. The price of this is quite reasonable at 45,000 Japanese yen. Next, we have a pair of Menuki with the design of Mamori Shishi, the sacred lines. They both are biting into something here, and one has some military signaling attributes, and the other a cane with a dragon head and a scroll. These shishi are called Mamori Shishi, which can be translated as protecting shishi, and they were meant to protect their wearer from harm. You can still actually buy several different kinds of protection charms, so-called omamori, today in Japanese shrines. The Menuki are made from shakudo with golden highlights in quite some nice degree of detail, as you can see here. They are attributed to the Waki Goto by the MBTHK Hozon certificate, which means they were made by a sideline master of the Goto family, most likely in the Middle Edo period. The price for these is only 70,000 Japanese yen. Our next piece is a Tsukashi Tsuba made from a very dark and black shakudo in Moko shape. The theme of this Tsuba is family crests with vines. We can see the Kirimon on top, a bamboo on the left, probably an acorn on the bottom, and if you can identify the flower on the right, please leave us a comment. It has been attributed to the Akao tradition by the MBTHK and comes with a Hozon certificate. The Akao school was founded by Akao Yoshitsugu, who was a samurai of the Fukui clan in the Echizen province during the early Edo period. The second generation actually became quite an expert Tsuba craftsman and later moved to Edo. The school shows influences by the Shoami, Umetada as well as Heianjo traditions, and a very typical characteristic is their quite sophisticated tsukashi carving in shakudo. And this is exactly what we also can see in this elaborate piece here. Yeah, this is indeed quite an elegant tsuba for 125,000 yen. When you hold it in hand, you can see here that the rim is actually quite thick. And it was probably made for a wakizashi. Our next piece is a Hikonebori Tsuba by Nomura Muneaki from Hikone in Omi province, today's Shiga prefecture, and actually the location of our last Super Samurai Market. For those of you who have not watched it, please do so afterwards. Muneaki was a student of Kanenori, who himself studied under the first Soten master, and we can see the similarity in the work style very well here. We know many Hikonebori pieces in iron by the Soten school, but this piece is made in a very dark shibuichi. Also, it has no tsukashi elements, but was carved into the full plate, which in Japan is actually regarded as the higher quality Soten style. The design shows wild horses under pine trees, and we can see that the outlines of the design elements have been chiseled with quite a strong and thick stroke. This piece is signed Yumeishi Nomura Muneaki on the front, and on the ura Goshu Hikoneju. Bushu is simply another name for Omi province. It is attributed by the NBTHK to this master and received a Tokubetsu Hozon certificate. The price for this piece is 200,000 Japanese yen. As a last item today, we are very happy to present to you a great piece with the most interesting history. This tsuba here is made from very well and densely forged iron. The design is kiku and warabite, chrysanthemum and vines. The work is Mumei, but has been attributed to the Umetada tradition. We actually know many similar designs by Umetada Myoju, the founder of the Umetada school and maybe one of the most famous tsuba makers of all times, where he carved this distinct square or diamond shape into a round or moko-shaped tsuba. The very subtle carvings of the iron give this tsuba a strong wabi-sabi feeling, and we are reminded well of the works of the great Nobuie. As we can see with other great Umetada tsuba as well, this piece has once been remounted, and the form of the hitsu was slightly changed and then highlighted with a thick gold foil. This Tsuba has quite a unique provenience, as it once belonged to the collection of the Hosokawa daimyo, who were the lords of the Higo province, today's Kumamoto prefecture. Due to their influence, the great Higo schools flourished and their typical style was cultivated. We can find here an old inventory paper from the Hosokawa collection and the old wrapping cloth. This really makes this piece a very interesting historical record. The price is 500,000 yen for this Tokubetsu Hoson attributed Umetada Tsuba.
This brings today's presentation of Super Samurai Market to a conclusion. We hope you've enjoyed today's visit to Token Matsumoto in Nishi Kasai. The items that we presented today are just a small sampling of the great number of swords and fittings that are available for your pleasure and purchase at this interesting shop.
If you plan on visiting Matsumoto's shop here in Nishi Kasai, we are glad to arrange a visit for you, an appointment. Anyone needing assistance with purchase of the items you've seen today, please contact us here under purchase at supersamuraimarket.com.
Today's presentation will initiate a series of follow-up YouTube presentations, most likely monthly, in which selected items will be available for viewing, and these items are all part of the vast inventory of Token Matsumoto. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for watching.